Hello everyone. So I want to talk about this, and there's many angles to it, so it's going to take probably a while to explain the whole lot and to talk about it. But I do think it's important to have this conversation because it's something that's not talked about a lot in society, and mainly down to, of course, the birth rates are decreasing, etc. And a lot of people not having children anymore. Due to a lot of cases, children, of course, having a big family, and especially even having one kid too. Of course, the mother and father has to take time off work, etc. They're losing out, even though they're getting maternity leave, etc. A lot of parents will go back to work straight away to pay, because they have mortgages to pay, they have a house to pay for the rent, etc. So it's basically unaffordable now for basically 90% of the population. Not even 95% to be totally honest with you. And the Irish state, of course, it does give children's allowance, etc., and of course, back to school allowance, etc., for children. But at the same time, too, years ago, parents, they was have the mother, in some cases, father too, could one of them could stay at home and look after the child at home because it's important to bring up a child with love and care. The woman behind me is a great example of that. She said the one thing to show a child is love and to show them attention and love. And I think it's important for the development, of course, being future citizens too, that they're shown as much love and care and compassion as possible when they're younger, to have them make them have a good childhood, to have something that they will enjoy, etc. Because it's important that they become good people in society and treat society well and people well. And I think the main thing is giving them a chance to grow up with their family, etc., with their father and mother. A lot of children nowadays, they barely have time to even see their mother and father because their mother and father's working, and they just don't have time for them. And it's a sad thing to say, but it's simply the truth. There's simply not enough time for them to spend bonding time and to enjoy life, because that's what it's all about, enjoying life, and that's what all the family's about too, enjoying life and living the life. But unfortunately, this capitalist society that we live in, it's all about profit. It's not about the people. It's all about profit, and that's what it's all about. And sadly, a lot of people who have families, and of course we need Irish families in this case, because people from Timbuktu are coming in here, etc. But Irish people should be able to have a family. Years ago, people were. And, let's put it this way, a lot of mothers particularly used to be able to stay at home. And of course, the fathers can stay home too if they want to. But what I mean to say is, it's very beneficial to society, to the whole world, basically. To Ireland too, of course, if the parents stay home and mind the children as possible, and spend as much time as possible with the children to make them grow up well and to give them good values, strong values to uphold the law, etc., and to be a good citizen to help your country to help your country and your fellow people as best you can. But the state fucks these people over in every conceivable way, because there's no thing in this country that can help parents. Take for example childcare costs. There's people I know who have one child and they have to pay half of the money along with the rent to childcare to look after the child after school because they don't have anybody to look after them, and it's a sad thing because it's still a lot of money. In some cases in Cavan it's €500 a week to look after one child in the childcare facility. Um, and that's insane. Not many people have that money lying around, but the people who do, they don't have much left at the end of the week after that. But what I mean by that is it's becoming economically unsustainable for people to have children, particularly in this country. As I say, one parent could have stayed home years ago, and the other person would go out to work. The other man, particularly, would go out to work. Nowadays, you nearly need two parents working because nobody can afford on one paycheck to to survive, basically, in a lot of cases, to pay the rent, etc. And there's nothing in the Irish state, like you think the Irish state would say, for every Irish child you have, we would pay some of the rent. The Irish government would flip the bill for some of the rent or some of the upkeep of the child. Of course, you get your children's allowance, etc. But you think there'd be some incentive to help out parents, particularly single mothers who are at home, the majority of cases looking after their children, um, or even fathers too. That the Irish state will come along and say, "Look, we'll help you out," because it's so beneficial. I don't think we realise how beneficial it is to society. And my mother did, when I was younger, just speaking personally for a second, my mother did. My parents split up when I was younger. But it was important, obviously somebody that had dyslexia, special needs, etc. It is more important to give them more care and attention and to make them feel valued, because being so different, and I suppose being different to many other people with dyslexia and autism and other issues too, it's important that they have a good childhood and that they feel like they're valued, and of course to show them love and care, because sadly we see with dyslexia and autism and other cases that you're more prone to your mental health issues, etc. Because you feel different, you feel left out, you feel excluded. So it is crucial. But my mother worked for a long. My mother had me when I was she was 40, and it was over 40 by the time she had me. Um, but yeah, she would walk. She walked all her life apart from that. And even nearly into about 2008 financial crash, my mother worked to from nearly 50, nearly 55 or something like that. But basically, after the 2008 financial crash, because I was still a child at the stage, she stayed at home. She was a stay-at-home parent, looking after me. And of course, my father worked on for another few years, but he was working since he was 14, etc. But the good thing about my parents, they were always there for me. Unfortunately, a lot of families don't have that. But my father was always a part of my life, thankfully. In a lot of cases, the father and the mother split up, and they never really see each other. The child doesn't get to spend much time. But that's a different situation. But what I'm trying to say is, it did benefit me in some regard, whatever you would take. It did benefit me having more time with my mother, more time with my father, mainly because they were getting on in years, etc. And my father particularly had a heart condition, etc. My mother has osteoporosis, bad with her bones. Basically, if she fell, her bones would shatter more than, say, for example, my bones. If I fell, I'd probably get a bad leg maybe for a week or two. Her bone would be totally gone for so that's why too. Because a lot of employers didn't want to take on somebody like that too. That was getting on in years too, of course. But yeah, they were great parents to me. But I'm trying to say, I can't underestimate how much that develops the child. For life, not for a year or two, for life, for literally for the whole life, for 70 years, 80 years of their life. And, it brings such values to the child and teaches them such lessons. Because I was always taught, just speaking personally, off topic for a second, but I do think it's important to raise, that I was always told when I was younger to always, uphold the law, never to break the law, to be a good member of society, to try and be nice to people, try and be good to people. And you see that every day. And I always try and live it every day. I always try and be decent with people. And that's as simple as that. I might be tough, in terms of different topics, etc. But I always try and treat somebody with decency. I always try and be decent with them. I don't shout them down, and I always try and treat them decently, because that's what I was always brought up as. You treat people with some kind of decency, and to be understanding in a lot of cases too what people are going through. Because you even see it on social media. I don't shout people down, curse people down. Because you don't know what that person's going through in their personal life, etc. It's not appropriate to shout them down and make them feel even more terrible than they are. And even, as I said, with the law, never to break the law, try and uphold the law, always be good to people, always help out an elderly citizen if you see them. And that's values that no money can buy. That's that they're values and lifelong lessons that you will carry to the end of your days, basically. That no money, no state institution would ever teach you, basically, because it's something that you learned when you were a child, you grew up, and that's something that was instilled in you, and it's a good thing, and it's good values. Of course, some other parents might teach their children different, but I think it has helped me a lot in that regard, and even just the care and attention I got, and just even speaking with the woman, as I said, the most important to do with a child is show them love, make them feel loved, because unfortunately too many children don't feel loved, and unfortunately they turn into people that are cold-hearted people that just hate everything, and just are out to cause evil in the world in a lot of cases, and it's shown time and time again that does happen, unfortunately. But so I do think it's something that we need to talk about in society, that it is a worrying thing that parents don't get to spend much time with their children, and the state should probably help out as best as possible, because the Irish government are saying, no, we need to bring more people in from Timbuktu. But the simple reality is, if the state would invest, because again, it's an investment, because we want children to grow up. If we don't, say if a child grows up now in 2026, and in 20 years' time they end up in prison, etc., for 40 years for a crime that they did, at least if we brought that child, give the child the support, etc., to try and make a good life, and to understand that breaking the law is not acceptable in society and causes harm to society, then the Irish state would save billions on not sending people to prison, etc. And of course, helping that family out and helping the parent maybe stay at home and try and help out the child grow up, etc., be there. It's invaluable. And even stay at home parents, etc. The state even says it themselves that it saves hundreds of millions of euro in stay at home parents looking after the children. It saves hundreds of millions of euro for the Irish state. The same as carers allowance caring for older people. It saves the state a bomb by this, but it's something that needs to be valued a bit more. In modern years ago, and Ireland was more valued. The state cared a bit more about that, bringing up children in the right way. But nowadays they couldn't give a damn, and it's a sad thing, but it's something that needs to be talked about. Thank you.